once you discover this way of treating or preventing illness, you can't unsee it. It's impossible for me now to go back and say, we'll just take a statin. I just can't do it.
Fellow Homo sapiens, welcome back to Epilepsy Sparks Insights. Today's chat is part 3 of 3 with the pharmacist who gave up drugs, Graham Phillips, who shares with us what somebody should do if they are interested in the ketogenic diet or metabolic psychiatry. We talk about what one might need to give up: feeling full, satiated, weight loss, constipation, nutrition, of course, and having the right support if the ketogenic diet is right for somebody. If you haven't listened to episodes 1 and 2 yet, I really do advise that you do that, as Graham gives us some great background information into the ketogenic diet, the challenges faced in acceptance of the benefits by clinicians, politicians and regular people, and where we are today, unfortunately, in terms of the human brain, main body health, but maybe the keto can help with that. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our channel. Only about 18% of our regular viewers are actual subscribers, so if you're one of the 82% that hasn't yet subscribed, please do so today. Having you on board helps us with the algorithms, which then promotes our channel to more people who don't yet realise how fascinating and never-ending the subject is. Plus, we get to raise awareness and understanding of the epilepsies around the world. Now on to our star of the week in part 3 of 3, the pharmacist who gave up drugs and became passionate about the ketogenic diet, Graham Phillips.
So I'm famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, as the pharmacist who gave up drugs.
So research is, it's one of the most exciting things in the world, is and it's incredibly important, but how we interpret studies is really, really important. And the best scientists will say exactly the same thing and tell you that results need to be replicated, and they'll tell you that actually we are focusing on this tiny slither, which you have to do, slither of a population, or tiny, one particular drug, but we don't know the rest of it. We can't generalize, right?
I think that's true for drugs, but I think you can generalize. In general, there's healthy metabolism, and you can identify what healthy metabolism looks like.
Of course.
You can measure it objectively. You can change the diet and you can see the changes. And you can measure the changes in people's absolute health and proxy measures for health. And that's why there's a group of us collaborating both in the UK and worldwide to shift the paradigm. And I believe in the next 10 or 20 years, there will literally be a paradigm shift where we'll realise that medicine is food and food is medicine, with potential to fundamentally shift the dialogue and our well-being. Because what's the alternative? We cannot fund, look around you, the obesity epidemic is one thing, but the mental health epidemic blows that into the weeds, and it's getting worse and worse. The funding isn't there. We've got to do something differently. So this to me is the most optimistic thing I've ever done in my professional life.
And talking about funding, I mentioned this before, but it's about funding needed right now and the imminent, potentially foreseeable few years. But long term, the funding required will reduce.
Exactly. People don't remember, but when the NHS was first introduced, they thought the problem would solve itself. So we'd cure everyone, we'd all be fit and healthy, you wouldn't need a health system, and it will pay for itself. So it was reduced as a health service, right? The whole concept of the NHS was a health service. We haven't got a health service, we've got an illness service. The paradigm's turned upside down. We can go back there, though. There's no inherent reason why we couldn't get the NHS to do what it was originally supposed to do. We've just forgotten that. You and I have had some offline chats about all of this. And I don't think I've convinced you that I'm right, but I think I've convinced you it might be worth trying. And that's all I would ever ask, really. I don't, if it becomes about belief systems, then it becomes a cult.
Correct.
And I'm not a cultist, right? I'm not saying to everyone I'm right. All I'm saying is I might be right. Look at what I do, look at what others are doing, look at what we're putting out, reach your own conclusions, and you might reach a different endpoint.
I'm not doubting that your work and advice to all these people with different diseases has worked to benefit them, but it's just that I'm always a bit scientific minded in terms of, what we change and what we alter.
Good. And you should be.
And also I'm very aware that each individual is very individual. What may work for one person might not work for another. And, lots of us are on different medications, even though we want to get off them. Like things that right now are different to that of another person. And, like I've been thinking a certain way or believing drugs and surgery for a long time, like decades. And, although I can't say it's all positive, it's kind of a bit like that safety area. It's what you know. It reminds me of somebody I know who said it took him years to actually leave a marriage because he was like, I don't know anything else and I'm scared of it. And I think it's like that decision.
It is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reference framework.
But I'm also very excited. So for instance, in my case, and you said to do, I would have done this anyway, but you very kindly, you said, let's get your clinicians on board. Okay, so reach out to them, let them know this is what you are going to do. You need their support. And I think it's really important to get interaction between them or that one person, multiple people and yourself. So you could have, we spoke before about HIV AIDS. If you have your clinician who specializes in that to get involved with you, that would be really, really important.
We've got the beginnings of a cunning plan, which is yourself and me and Erin, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. We're going to have a go at some changing your diet and see what results.
I'm going to miss chocolate, dude. I'm just like, what am I going to do? And okay, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm thinking the chocolate, the milk for my tea. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Chocolate's fine. It's the sugar that they put in it there the problem lies. You can have your chocolate, it's okay.
So diabetic chocolate, maybe?
Cadbury's dairy milk used to be 79% sugar. I've got no problem with chocolate so long as it's high quality chocolate without a ton of sugar in. So you'll probably be able to carry on with your chocolate.
And I'm a bit of a salad fiend. So we spoke about this briefly before. And I think you said something about you're cool with having a bit of salad, but it's stuff that's been grown underground that's an issue. Is that right?
Broadly, we want to reduce the carbs and increase the protein and the fat, and by playing with the protein. So that's why there's not one single keto diet. The original one that John Hopkins came up with was a very high fat. So the fat to protein to carb ratios were very set. Now there's about 4 or 5 different versions, and different iterations work for different people. Because there's no point in saying this is the diet for you, but you can't cope with it.
Yeah, right.
Better to pick the version that you can sustain. And maybe we gradually evolve it over time. So the plan would be to gently, slowly evolve your diet in a way that you find sustainable and enjoyable.
I want to feel full.
I always say to clients, the first thing is don't be hungry.
Right, you've got to feel satiated, otherwise...
Exactly. So we start with satiation, we avoid the junk foods, and then we move from there, step by step, and then it becomes sustainable.
Am I going to have to eat knobs of butter?
Who knows?
Because I've heard about kids having to do that. Like there was this child, is this child, who, and this is an amazing story actually, so had, I think, Dravet syndrome, a rare type of epilepsy, was having all these seizures, went on the ketogenic diet, but full throttle, the most severe, as did his mum and dad. And his cognitive function has increased. He's in regular school, and his mum and dad are cool about it. But they said they sometimes have to eat knobs of butter. Almost
none of my clients eat knobs of butter. They do bullet coffee sometimes. Some of them like the bullet coffee. So they put some butter in a coffee and whisk it up.
Oh, mate, that sounds rank. But I've never had it, so who knows, right?
Yeah, works for some people. Or you can just add, there are various other ketone supplements. But who knows? I would have thought that was pretty unlikely. I mean, that's a fairly extreme version.
Okay. And meat.
Yeah, meat is a good thing.
And fish.
Meat, fish. So, yeah, the one thing we know is we need to keep the carbs low, and then we play with the protein and fat ratio. But healthy proteins, healthy fats. And we flesh it out. Because remember, nutrition isn't macro. So the macronutrients, the proteins, the carbs, and the fats. Our body doesn't thrive on macronutrients. It thrives on micronutrients. It's the vitamins, it's the minerals, it's the amino acids. So that's why simply playing with the macros misses the point entirely. Yes, you've got to get the macronutrients right, but you've got to get the right nutrition. That's not the same as calories.
We've been brought up to believe that if you're going to get all these nutrients that you need, all these vitamins, you have to eat all these different types of vegetables and fruits. And are you implying that's not the case?
Yes, I am.
That's just like nuts.
If you look at human nutrition, if you look at the macro and micronutrient of red meat and offal or eggs, It's remarkably complete. So I'm not saying that you should, but if you follow Jordan Peterson or Michaela Peterson, they've gone, what she calls it the lion diet. So they're huge influencers. Like, I don't know how many, he's got 20 million YouTube followers or something. They've gone on a particular form of the carnivore diet, but it's revolutionised her health. I'm not saying that you should do that at all. I'm just giving an example.
And what about bunging one up? Like constipation and stuff? Because this is something commonly experienced by people with an epilepsy.
Yeah. Again, there's not one simple form. So it may be a problem, but generally it resolves. So once your gut gets used to working in a different way and everything's working normally, it resets. And there's lots of little ways around that. So,
but I've heard the keto diet can do that because it's not necessarily full of fibre.
Very few of my clients complain about constipation. Some do, but it's not a common finding, and we can always solve it.
Apparently weight loss is really common in people. Is it because they feel satiated and they don't eat as much CRAP, or
Well,
what?
It's interesting. Most of my clients probably end up taking in more calories than before.
So calories isn't everything.
Calories is nothing. So I always say to people, you know, when you go to your petrol station, you fill the car up and you see the fuel gauge doing that.
Yeah.
We have no such gauge. We literally do not have any way of we've got no receptor for calories. Your body doesn't know what calories are.
It's just our way that we've developed to measure things.
Exactly. What your body does know is it getting the right nutrients? So we've got a variety of nutrient sensors. So in the typical Western diet, where it's very high in calories but very low in nutrition, you've got to eat more and more food to get the nutrition that you need. So you end up overeating calories to get the nutrients. If you turn the food pyramid upside down, so it's very high in nutrition and low in calories, guess what? Your body will just set its natural weight healthy. You won't be hungry all the time, but you'll be getting nutrition, because it's all about nutrition and not about calories. We don't need many calories, but we do need a lot of nutrition.
I think of people that I've seen in remote tribes, and I'm like, mate, they look so buff.
Yeah.
I know they move around generally a lot.
Actually, not as much as we think. There's an assumption that they move a lot. Actually, that studies show they don't actually move that much more than we do.
Wow. And they just look ripped.
Yeah, because essentially they're eating the food that evolution has designed us to eat.
If people are interested in they're looking at the ketogenic diet as a potential treatment for a refractory epilepsy, or even actually maybe an epilepsy that's controlled by drugs, what should they do, rather than, because they definitely shouldn't just go and try and put themselves on the ketogenic diet. Don't do that.
100%. And particularly if you have other psychological syndromes
right,
as well.
which is so common.
Yeah, you can make those things work. So the first thing is talk to your medical team. And if your medical team will not even discuss it with you, I would say you've got the wrong medical team. The medical team should support you in your journey towards health. Find the right clinicians who will support you, and then work with people with expertise in nutrition, combine with other people with expertise in whatever your particular illness is. So if it's epilepsy, you need the right epileptologist, but you also need the right nutritionist.
And often, and you're a psychiatrist or psychiatrist often, or, you know, if you've got cerebral palsy, you need the person that you work with there to be on board.
So there are, both in the UK and worldwide, we're small numbers currently, right? I would say probably 5% of the medical establishment, but we do exist. And because we've realised how difficult it is, we support each other worldwide, and B, we're very keen to support clients and patients worldwide. You'll find a very supportive community out there who want to help you, not least because once you discover this way of treating or preventing illness, you can't unsee it. It's impossible for me now to go back and say, we'll just take a statin. I just can't do it.
I know loads of people, and myself, have thought, my God, cholesterol, like, if I eat all this stuff, isn't my cholesterol good? I know there are different types of cholesterol. Isn't that going to go through the roof?
Your cholesterol will go up, and that's a good thing.
What?
Cholesterol is such an important molecule that every single cell in the body makes its own cholesterol.
Oh, it's a key part of your brain, isn't it? I read somewhere, isn't it 20-30% or something of your cholesterol?
60%.
60 is in your flipping brain for it to work properly.
Because it's a huge molecule, it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. As a result, the brain makes its own cholesterol. Now, just think about evolution. Why is evolution so stupid that it would go to the extent of getting every single cell to make something that's unhealthy? I mean, how does that make sense?
Wow, I mean, sometimes it's not great, to be fair. There are anomalies, but yeah.
Cholesterol is a fundamental part of building block, our cell membranes, our transmitters, our brain. So this whole cholesterol thing has got really mixed up. It's actually the way that cholesterol is transported where the problem lies. It's about the lipids, not the cholesterol. When your lipids are damaged, it's a bit like getting, if you've got oil in the engine of your car and some water gets in, the engine starts to rust and oxidise.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem lies. So it's the way where the damage originates is how the cholesterol is transported around the body. That's where the damage is done to your heart and your vascular system. So it's cholesterol transport, not cholesterol itself.
Right.
Root cause. What's the real problem that we're trying to address? And cholesterol ain't the problem. So don't worry about the cholesterol. It's about ratios.
Thank you to Graham for part 3 of 3 about the ketogenic diet. It's all rather fascinating, to say the least, but do remember that this episode is not clinical advice. If you or somebody that you know is considering the ketogenic diet as a treatment for anything, or even just a change in diet overall, please do run it past your clinician first. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel, share this episode with your friends, colleagues, and we will see you in next week's episode of Epilepsy Sparks Insights.